Hello everyone, welcome back to Mirror Mind. Today my guest is Dume. He was with me in the last episode and we felt like we had more to talk about, and we're hoping that as usual you can be with us and explore and find out as we are finding out. So Dume, my brother, thank you very much for coming back.
You're welcome. It's always a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure. Yeah. Last time we were a lot, so I don't think we had a chance to really go deep into what each and every one of us was looking at. So thank you very much for taking the time and coming here.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me here.
It's a pleasure. How do we start this? Because I know we had agreed that this time we just come with sort of a free mind.
Yeah. No, I think this time around the idea was to perhaps give some audience insight into what this is all about, because I felt there was that need, to really get deep into it, and I felt you would be the right person to, get into that. So you might look at it as me being here to really dig deep into this thing, and it can actually be anything, So, like you say, we are approaching it with an open mind at this stage. But like I'm saying, I felt, let's dig deep into it, and especially on your side, give the audience as to what this thing is all about, because as you always say, this thing is serious.
Yeah, very serious. Yesterday, I don't know you guys, because you see, unfortunately, I have this social network that I have to engage with people.
Yeah.
Hopefully, in the long run, I would have to somehow also let that, maybe I was going to start tagging people and say, okay, please take care of this. Because not only it's time consuming, but also I don't want to have a one-sided conversation. Because at the end of the day, it's a discussion. And sometimes we see the same, sometimes we see differently. So I think it would be good maybe if in the long run, because I think last time when we were speaking, we said it would be good in the very long run to have a proper space that is self-fulfilling, self-maintaining, and maybe we'll find people that can actually take care of this whole social media thing. I've got two guys that help me with the editing, but when it comes to interacting with the people, I feel like I should be doing it, or at least one of the people that I've been talking to, because you need a certain level of understanding and a bit of kindness to deal with these people on social media.
Because I think yesterday I did see on Instagram there's one that you responded to, and the person had commented underneath my comment, the one that I'd made. So when I read it, I realized this person is still stuck where I was. So I wanted to come back, because then they were agreeing with what I said before. But now I had a different mind. So I thought, okay, let me get inside and explain. And I saw your response. I think you said something about them being fine if they still have their sanity. You realize, because they commented and said, here's another mad man. And I was like, that was my first impression also. He's actually not that mad, And I was like, no, let me let it go, because the way you handled it was good.
It takes a bit of self-control, really, to not get involved in that fight. Because at the end of the day, I'm human, So when someone comes at you right like that, it's only natural to kind of like want to hit back. But I always remind myself, generally when I see that sort of tension building up, I learned from it, you know. Then I found out that actually I'm not so different from the guy who was insulting me, and then it kind of brings me back down. So the reason I'm saying that is, thank God you saw that one. There's another. I mean, there's that one, and then there's one specific one that I wanted to talk about. But if you do get a chance, you'll probably see those comments.
Yeah.
I don't know why I wanted to talk about him. I wanted to point at something. Oh, serious. We're talking about this thing is serious. Yeah. So he said, I think it's the same guy. He said, life isn't that serious, you know. I'm going to chop my, you know, I think it's from Lagos. So he speaks a bit of pidgin English, which is very tricky for me to understand, but I kind of get one or two words. So he says, life isn't that serious. You must enjoy life and make money and this and that, you know, which I don't disagree. But to me, something doesn't have to be, when something is serious, it can still be fun, very interesting. So that's how I take this whole inquiry thing. Like, it's serious, but it's very fulfilling, very beautiful when you go through it.
There are different facets to it, yeah.
So I think the best way to start this is to be sure that we are speaking the same language.
Correct.
You know, last time when we were talking, you mentioned Terence, that guy, what's his name again? Terence Howard something.
I remember, yeah.
I think he was saying, he said 1 + 1
or 1 + 1 = 2. 1 times 1 = 2. Yes.
Equals 2.
Yes.
And then when I tried to look at it for a second, but to me it seemed like he was looking at the whole that equation on a different level. Like he's trying to completely erase the common understanding that we've agreed. Because at the end of the day, it's a social thing that we've agreed upon. We've said, look, 1 times 1 = 1, which means 1 once is 1, right? But he was looking at it as 1 times 1, you know, it's like adding something on top of that one. So language can be very tricky when you're trying to find something.
When there are no agreement in terms of terms,
definitions,
because like you say, that is mathematical language that has been agreed upon. So it's like you say, it's a convention. It's something that was agreed on. So if you are coming into it, you have to come into it with that understanding that it's got its context. It's not something that's just Otherwise, we can erase that and then start from scratch, to erase it again and come from scratch. Yes, no, it makes sense.
So I think maybe as we'll be talking, it will be very helpful if maybe, let's say we want to talk about a bottle, we have to define what we agree
so
about.
we're on the
bottle.
same page. No, that makes sense.
I think that was one of the problems we also had last time. Because to me, it isn't that we were disagreeing because we were looking at it differently, just that even the definition itself was being compromised. We were like on different levels. So, and then there's one other guy who came at me yesterday. He was very, very angry. You know, it's easy to remember the guys that you fight with compared to the guys that agree because, you know, then you see that you're looking at the same thing. So he was very angry, saying that we are just repeating stuff. We are stealing wisdom from the legends of the past, right? So, and we are trying to act smart. So I want to find out about that. I want to be sure that we are not just repeating words, because it's one thing repeating 1 times 1 = 1, and it's another thing understanding 1 times 1 = 1.
That's true.
Yeah. So let's try to see if maybe we are not caught into some sort of a repetition of knowledge only. Yeah. So one thing I asked him was, if you're gonna use that term "steal," do you realize that you are also stealing your ability to communicate with me is only possible because you are stealing English from the legend of before.
Everything is borrowed.
Everything is, yeah. So he said, and then he was trying to prove a point that no, this is not stealing, because who created words and so on. You can't steal communication. So what I'm trying to get at is, can you really say that I own something, like something is mine, therefore, no other man can, like ownership of knowledge, and or basically, can you create something without a previous input? I want to look at knowledge first.
Yeah, in that aspect.
In that respect, like, are we not the product of knowledge in our day-to-day lives and so on? So let's define knowledge. What do you hear by knowledge?
Well, just a general definition will be, acquired information, acquired ideas, basically, anything that you can acquire as a human being that you have access to, that will boil down to knowledge. And just to touch also on what you're saying, as long as you define it that way, you realize that you do not have ownership of it. Because even if you come to a point where it's new words, a typical example, if you look at the issue of selfies, if you say selfie, there were no selfies before. But the term selfie also refers to, you taking an image of yourself. So it's built on a word that's already there. So you have to borrow from self to come up with selfie. So it's very difficult to really stand up and say you have ownership of anything. And I think also that's where the seriousness now gets to, because you realize that, oh my God, there is really nothing that is unique to me, that comes from me. Everything is borrowed. The very language that you are speaking is actually borrowed. And even if you had to try to come up with your own,
you'll use your...
you have to build on the previous one. So it goes back to what we say, that once you then realize that, it poses you with a serious question, because now you really have to ask yourself, and what then from this point? Because I've actually come to a point, just to put it bluntly, that maybe my life is a lie.
Like, I don't think for myself. Like, I'm a...
Yes, because even if the language that I'm going to use is a language that is given to me, what then is me? So I think once you start asking that question, it gets uncomfortable, and that's when you then get someone saying, you guys are just, you're just stealing ideas, because they don't want to go there. Then they will say, okay, just enjoy life. So you see, it's like a coping mechanism. It's a defense mechanism. So say, I don't want to go there, because I'll go there and then I'll realize this thing that you are saying, and then what?
Then what? I'm taking you to the edge of a cliff, and then I leave you there.
You see, because I haven't taken myself there, and because I haven't taken myself there, it's uncharted territory. I don't know what I should do when I get there, because you are telling me that none of this belongs to me. So it's actually a serious and a scary thought.
I think anything that you pursue seriously, eventually it gets scary. And in our case, it's this. So since knowledge, that's how I see knowledge, as being limited and limiting. Because first, there's no way you can guarantee that you are right, because you are an outcome of many, many other layers of knowledge, right? And then you realize that anything that you try to come up with is the product of the previous knowledge. So you feel like really, there's no movement, you don't know where to go. So knowledge is very limiting in that manner. So I feel at some point man has to leave knowledge to perhaps maybe find something new, something else than what he knows, right? So a man like that brother, and he seems very young, by the way. I don't know how come he knows so many legends. I don't know which legend he was talking about.
Yeah.
So a man like him is, when you have that edge of, he knows a lot.
Yeah.
That guy knows. He's probably read too much. He's listened to a lot.
Was it a long conversation? I missed it.
I'll show it to you.
No, I'll check it out.
It was one of those. It's not even a conversation, really. It's someone who's just attacking.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but you also sense a bit of. I don't want to be harsh and say jealousy, in the sense that I feel he would rather be the one, talking and doing all that, because he knows too much.
Yeah, I think the other obstacle about, or the difficult thing rather about this issue is that once you allow the person to take you through it, if you get to a point where you say, okay, let me hear what you're saying, take me through there, you will see it.
You will see it.
You will see it.
Yeah.
So what I found that most people do is to fight that process where you're trying to say, okay, listen to what I'm saying, try and listen. Forget what you think you know, and then you take through them. Everyone gets there.
Everyone, and when you get there, it's not even, you realize that no one ever took me here. Really.
Yes. Yeah. No one ever took me here. And now that I'm here, I actually have to find my way. Because even the person that took me here took me here because they realized that there's this point.
Yeah. Well, we are stuck here.
This serious point that we.
So do you think probably a guy like that doesn't know why he's doing that, why he's fighting it? Maybe to him he's really rationally just trying to prove a point. But could it be unconsciously that he's avoiding getting there?
I think it also has to do with what he thinks he knows.
So knowledge is a problem in this case.
So like you say, I found that you learn easier if you take a step of saying, even though I think I know this, let me look. So learning becomes an attitude. You have to take a certain attitude for you to be able to learn. And once you get into that attitude, then you are able to, to accept, not only accept, entertain. So there's a saying that it is a sign of a wise man to entertain something even though he does not agree with. Because then at the end of it, even the one that has brought it to you is able to see it for what it is, because you have looked at it together.
Yeah.
So, for example, you might come to me and say, this is it, or you tell me set, and then I dismiss you. You go thinking, I'm wrong. But if we go through it and you get to the end and you see it for what it is, then even though I knew before that this thing was not it, when you get to the end, you're going to see it for what it is. So it is knowledge that will make someone not even want to go there. Because, like you say, he was not there to sort of try and listen and entertain what you're saying. And because of that, it poses a challenge. And the challenge is this knowledge that we hold on to and we think it's ours, when it's actually there to blind us from this other aspect that you are supposed to see. So that's a scary thing, because you're asking me to do away with something that I hold dear. And you're saying, no, put it aside. Put it aside and see what happens. And then someone says,
how can I give?
If I put it aside, what am I left with? Because
you see, putting it aside is giving up on yourself, because you are all that. Yeah.
So maybe it also speaks about identity.
Yeah,
because,
I think that's
So I feel as human beings we get uncomfortable when someone touches on our identity. Because now you are saying, I've always identified myself as a family man. And then you come and say, this family man thing that you're talking about is actually it's not your thing. And that reminds me, when I was in varsity, we used to study this philosopher, Emily Durkheim.
Emily Durkheim?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, so she says in society there's what is called social facts, right? So he says social facts are things that we do as human beings. But when we do them, we think we are doing them because we want to. And the only time you can identify what these social effects are is when you go against them. So a typical example, we wake up every day, we get dressed, you choose your clothes carefully, and we even spend money on what we want to wear and stuff like that. Try waking up one day and decide to walk outside naked. You see that? So when you go against this, you realize that I'm actually forced.
Yeah, you are forced
to get dressed.
Yeah.
But your mind has told you that the fancy clothes that you are wearing are actually yours. So you see, once a man arrives there and then he says, so my whole sense of fashion and everything, I'm thinking it's coming from me.
No, it's not.
But there's someone pulling the strings, behind and saying, you have to be dressed. You have no choice. Actually, if you don't get dressed and you decide to...
put you in jail.
You see. So there's a list of items that they come up with, and they call them social facts. And I feel for people, especially in this generation that we live in, there are many of those facts. There are many things that we do and we think, they are coming
probably
from...
the majority.
Yes, they are coming from us, whether it's your choice of fashion, your music. And I'm always asking myself how possible it is that we can have one song that we all like, and we say it's a hit and everyone likes it. So there's always that question, like you say, that are you really coming to that point because of me? Because me and 1 million other people, where is me there? Where is me?
If you are everywhere, you're anywhere.
If you are everywhere. So it's scary to sort of jump from that point where you then try and see things for what they are. And that's why even that person on that comment would say, you guys are madmen. Because you stepped away from... Yeah. But are you really a madman?
Yeah.
Or are you somebody that has realized that this thing can put me in the majority, and when I'm in the majority, really, I'm just flowing. I'm floating. I'm doing what's expected. And it becomes a scary thought then when you try and move back.
So, so as we were saying, knowledge is anything acquired, anything accumulated. So my culture, my name, my degrees, my knowledge of color, basically the entire past, right?
Yeah.
That is knowledge.
Even the future.
Yeah, even...
what you're projecting into the future, actually knowledge.
So I am knowledge then?
Yes.
That is what I am. And I can I can be aware of that knowledge through my thinking.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the first contact with knowledge, basically, the recollection. Then there's another now. Okay, that now we have a definition. That is knowledge.
Yeah.
Which is me. I am knowledge. That thing that is saying I. The thing, the sound, the thinking, the even the knowledge of the noise that a cat makes. It's embedded in my head, right? So everything, my images, accumulated sound, everything that makes me me. My taste, what I like, what kind of food I like, what kind of women, what kind of men I like, all that.
Knowledge, yeah.
That is my knowledge, which is me. Now, since that is established, let's move on. Let's see how knowledge moves. The actual movement of knowledge. There's another brother who was saying that thought is separate from memory. When I read that, to me it seemed very off, but I want to give you a chance and kind of look at it and see if that is actual at all. So I'm thinking to myself, can you remember something without thinking?
No.
You can't.
I would say your memory is actually a byproduct of thoughts.
So thoughts could be memory, it could also be imagination.
Yes, it could be a lot of things.
Could be a lot of things.
Yeah, but on top of it is thoughts, and then you have all these different, which can be your dreams, your intuition, your the rest, but they all come from thought. Because what I also picked up, you remember before we started, speaking, I was also of the idea that you can actually separate these things, and we'll go there, and I'll still, try and see how we can, separate the two. Because the challenging thing is once you realize that there's nothing that you can understand without this accumulated knowledge, then it then means everything becomes thought. Because for me to make sense of this is that accumulated knowledge.
Yeah.
Without it, this becomes nothing.
You
see? So it gets us to that point where we then say, yes, everything springs from thought, whether it's memory.
So we just put everything in a bulk and call it thought.
Yes.
Which we can also call knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah. So this movement of knowledge has been going on for as long as mankind has been there, as far as we know.
Correct.
It could perhaps be even longer in the animal. Assuming we accept the whole theory of evolution, I think there's sufficient proof to show that there's been evolution. Even if you take the stance of religion, which is creation, God, man, Adam and Eve, for example, still it falls under thoughts. The way I look at it, you're only aware of that through that thinking. So there's not much difference between the science world and the religious world. So this knowledge has been there for as long as we know, for as long as life has been there.
Correct.
The very second it started, accumulation started. Why has man given so much importance then to this knowledge, if it is this limited? Why are we giving it so much importance to the point where the more knowledgeable, which means the more limited, the more glorious you are here, the more celebrated you are?
I think that's a good question. I've actually thought of it and asked myself also. And how I looked at it, I was, and you'd help me if you can, maybe bring some clarity on this one. Are we looking at thought as the very essence of who we are, or are we looking at it as a tool that is given to us to be able to experience this, or a tool that is able to, give us that ability to express ourselves in this, experience that we find in? And if that's the case, then if it's a tool, because a tool can be improved on, and that's the issue with knowledge. We
because it's limited, you can always add.
Always add
forever.
On it, yes. So, isn't it a limitation on its own to say that we are but just thought, as opposed to looking at it as a tool? Just like, and why I'm saying tool. just like language, when you speak, it's limited, but it's a tool.
It serves a function.
Yes, it serves a
Very
function.
Helpful, yeah.
So maybe if we can try and also look at thought in that sense to say, okay, we find ourselves in this space that we find ourselves in. We have to have tools for us to, experience this. Can't we say thought is, one of those tools? What are the, implications or challenges of looking at thought in that way?
I think that's how it should be looked at, as a tool.
As a tool.
Yeah.
If we then look at it that way as a tool, does it not pose a challenge whereby we then have to, how can I put this? We then have to recognize that there's something else other than this tool.
Yeah. So, I think that's how it should be looked at, because, look how helpful this tool has been throughout the years. If you look at all animals, what we can accomplish.
Yeah.
What this mic here can do, what Brennan is doing there in the background.
Yeah.
That's just amazing, This building here, all this is the result of thought. It's a tool. So, there's no way around that. Denying thought is degrading yourself in a way, So I think that is the best approach. So far, it hasn't really. I think it can be improved because the same capacity it has to make this, it has the same capacity to make a bomb, or something to kill, to hurt, and so on. Not only hurt someone else, but even hurt yourself, judging yourself, trying to control what can't be controlled. So it's both ways. It's a tool. Now, the problem is it's limited.
Just like any other tool.
Any other tool. It's limited. And anything limited breaks. It can only take you as far. At some point, it becomes a problem now. So seeing the limitation of thought seems to be the highest thing that thought can do, actually. Realizing its own limitation is the highest it gets. It can do all these things. For this mic to be improved, we first have to see the limit of this mic. Maybe,
So thought then says...
it has to improve. So the recognition of the limitation seems to be very important, as opposed to glorifying itself, So that's when now we're talking physically outside here, but I'm saying now within ourselves. When thought glorifies itself, it becomes dangerous. When it starts saying, I am...
when it places itself in a place of absoluteness.
Absolute, yeah.
Okay.
When it projects itself there so it can get there. It creates that movement, that forever going on movement, which
and
I like
it forgets
to
about its own limitations.
Its own limitation.
Yeah.
It forgets that the very projection of that is the creation of that, the next limit, only to get there, and now it's a cycle. Now it goes on.
So thought is forever hitting a hole.
Forever hitting a hole. Now, coming back to your question now, if we look at it as a tool, then it puts us in a position where we say there could be something else than thought. So, the substance of thought. Now, how are we going to find that if the only tool, the highest tool we have is thought?
Is thought.
So we have to be even careful of projecting something there.
Because once you then come to a point and say, apart from this thing, this thought, this is still a product of thought, and we've already established that tool has its own limitations.
So I think the best way to approach this is, let's look at what is reality and what is truth. Is reality truth. So what is real? You see, a crazy man, right? A madman, like the guy was calling us. You see, a crazy man, or even a sick person, someone who has dementia or some sort of hallucinations. I was watching a documentary. There's some sort of condition whereby people can convince themselves. Let's say when they touch water, they convince themselves that it's volcano, for example. Yeah. So it's burning them. And they've tested them. They go and put them in machines. They actually realize that actually the whole body behaves as if it is being burnt.
Yeah, I've seen one where some guy was convinced that he was in a freezing room, actually froze to death.
Seriously?
Yeah, he died.
That's just crazy. I keep on getting blown every day. That's a crazy story.
But I think it also goes back to the question that you're asking, to say what is reality and what is truth.
I think we should explore that.
Yeah.
I think we should know.
And the challenging aspect about that is truth is dependent on thought.
We'll see. Let's start with reality.
I would say, I think for reality, I think reality is the substance of what we try to understand through the knowledge that we have accumulated, which we call thought. And so it poses a challenge. So the way I see it, reality exists in a certain realm, right? And then we take a sneak preview of it with the accumulated knowledge or thought that we have. And then based on that, we then create our own truth. So it's always a challenge to say then what is truth. So you can't really separate it from reality. Because your truth will depend on the thoughts that you have. So without sounding to be, anything, there's actually no truth.
No, let's I want to explore that. I want to look at that. Okay, perhaps maybe we might have to redefine a little bit the words just for the sake of it, so as long as we agree on the words. So coming back to that example, that man who thinks it's burning, to him that is real.
Yes.
To him, it's real. But it's not true. Because you can look at him, this man is not burning. So reality is the product of thought. In yourself, what you see as real is thought. You are seeing yourself. You are seeing yourself as you are. So that's your reality. Myself too, here I'm seeing my reality. For example, you're looking at me right now. That's your reality. I'm looking at you. That's my reality. But the truth has no perspective.
Correct.
It's global. There's no division in that. So can we separate these two words?
I think we can. So, like I said, you have reality that exists in its own realm, apart from our own personal perspective.
Which is truth, really. Reality is truth.
Yes.
It's not separate.
And then you then have... No, when I talk about truth, like the example that you gave, that if someone is going to be convinced that they're freezing and they actually die from it, it is their truth, right?
Okay.
Because it even affects them as truth would. There's no difference between the one who's actually experiencing, what you would perceive as grounds for you to freeze. But if the results are the same, that means they are going through the same process. But how you perceive it from outside, you're perceiving it differently based on your own truth or perspective, like you said. But based on their own inner perspective, it is true and it affects them in that true reality, to put it that way. So then truth takes different faces or facets. There's your truth, there's my truth, then there's a universal one that you are saying.
I think that's the truth I'm talking about. Let's divide, for the sake of discussing. Let's try to limit ourselves and divide this to reality and truth. But really, it's the same thing.
I think the one, it's the same thing. The one that we are referring to, the universal one,
Should we call it reality?
Yeah, let's call it reality.
Okay.
It's difficult for any of us to have an agreed upon, definition of what it is, because I'll tell it through my own perspective.
Yeah.
Not that by doing that it changes what it is. It doesn't. So we might agree because our perspective are coming to a point where they see it the same way we see it. So, for example, we know there's beauty, right? But your beauty and my beauty might be different, but there is beauty. Do you understand? So it's almost difficult to come to a point where we then agree and say, reality is this.
Yeah.
Not to say reality is not that. It's there, it exists, but we define it differently because of this perspective that we're talking about.
So I think, let's call the ultimate truth reality.
Yes, let's do that.
Let's keep it there. And then these so-called, let's not even call our perspective, let's call our perspective illusions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't encompass everything.
Yeah.
So then knowledge is illusory. Because if you can add more knowledge that discards the previous knowledge, you were always in an illusion, kind of. So knowledge wants to sustain itself. For as long as we know, we've given it importance because not only it helps us go on with, it's a good tool, but it wants to go on. It wants to, it seeks inheritance, both in myself through that constant thinking, and also even in, I give it to my child, who's going to give it to his child, and so on and so on. So knowledge wants to be constant, which means the illusion wants to sustain itself. So what is that illusion? If we know the world as we know it, we can say, this, I'm only aware of this through some sort of filter. So my life in some sort of illusory life, right? Yet I'm sustaining it, constantly sustaining it. What happens when there's no sustenance? Is that a word in English? Yeah.
That is, yeah.
What happens when there's no that? Can we know that? Can man get to that?
I think it's possible, but to answer your question in two parts. So when you explain knowledge as being this constant thing that wants to sustain itself, can you not maybe explore it to say it's a reflection of this reality? Because reality is like that. But because we are seeing it in filter, we are not seeing it in its full manifestation, to put it that way. So it's like a shadow of the real thing. So it will always try and mimic the real thing. But because we are seeing it as a filter, it does not appear fully for what it is. So there's a bit of illusion there because you're trying to understand something and there's that limitation. So it's not that it's really separate from reality. It is not. It is just trying to express itself through this tool that we spoke about. And because there are all these limitations, and that tool, like you said, it's limited, it becomes challenging to really have the clearness of what this reality is. But the two are not really in conflict. The thought is trying to reveal reality, to put it that way. You see? But it's difficult for it to reveal it because of the limitations that are there. So then the biggest question becomes exactly what you're asking, that what is then needed so that you see things the way I see them? Because I believe there is that stage that you can get to where you mentioned this one thing that you once you met a guy that when he was speaking to you, you were seeing yourself. Because I think that reality that we are talking about is like that. Because in that reality, the divisions that happen because of the thoughts, the filters.
Yeah.
Because
to maintain life.
Yes, because once something comes as filters, how we then receive it, it's not going to be the same. It depends on your filter that you have and mine that I have. So, for example, just to make there are people that have religious filters that have been told that this religion is like this. So even if it comes and it's a situation where they must accumulate, knowledge, because of those filters, they see it in a certain way.
Yeah, they twist the reality.
So I would say reality is always trying to
reveal itself.
To reveal itself. Always, to everyone. And it's the same. It's like a constant energy that is the same for everyone. But because of this knowledge, this limited knowledge, we limit how we
reject it in a way.
Yes, we reject it in a way.
Yeah.
And so the only way, perhaps, which is also difficult because, like you said, it then involves you dropping your identity, is to assume that you know nothing. And that state is very difficult to get to, because now when you say you know nothing, it means even the language to understand what happens after is thought. So can you really get to that point where you can preempt yourself of thought?
Yeah. I think that's when things become serious now.
Very serious. It becomes serious.
Very, very
because
serious.
For you to even linger on that, on that space where you have no name, you just want to take things. It's difficult.
It's difficult. Okay, I think we should do it experimentally as we're doing this. Of course, our thoughts will always interfere from time to time to communicate it.
Yeah.
So, in a way, we're saying to see reality, you must stop seeing yourself. Knowledge must stop. Because all you're seeing is you, your limitations. Knowledge must come to an end. If you are knowledge, then it means you must come to an end. Now we're talking about death. As you're living. That's why it's scary.
It is.
Yeah.
And in a way, maybe you won't connect it. So even if you look at it in religious terms, I think there's a verse that says, where Jesus tells his disciples that unless any of you receives these words that I'm saying as a child would, then you will not really understand what I'm saying. You see?
I see what it's trying to point out.
Yeah, so it's going back to what you are saying, that you really have to go back to a state of being a child, but as an adult.
Yeah.
So
being vulnerable.
Yes, maybe. And again, I'm saying this with with the possibility of being limited with words.
No, I know. Yeah.
So, can you empty yourself of knowledge and still be conscious? By saying conscious, I mean be aware, but without knowledge.
I think that's when awareness really is. Let's decide to call it awareness.
Yeah. Because I'm saying if you are then able to be, and I think it's possible because even as we go through life, there are moments when we are aware of what we don't know, and we can still exist. But are you then able to completely remove everything and still be aware? And why I'm saying that, we can come up in this room and I've never seen this, right? At that point, when I'm being told about what this is, I'm actually blank, even though I have other. So the only thing maybe that is at work at that point is the language that is being used, so that I can then understand this. But it's also challenging because also the language comes with a lot of things. So can you really empty yourself?
Yeah. Okay, so we'll find out. I think by the end of this session we should at least, if we fail, we fail. Accept. See, one thing I've realized with this thing, personally, I approach it always with, I doubt myself a lot because I don't want to be caught in an illusion.
I think for me that's something I have to learn also.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
To be caught in your own illusion. I think that's the worst thing that can happen to a man. So I always, even when something sounds very stupid, someone throws it at me, I have to listen. I'm like, what is it saying? And I listen to it by seeing my own arrogance when, it says something stupid. The very fact that I tagged it as stupid, it's hiding, it's camouflaging my arrogance. Yeah. So I look at my arrogance. And then, because I think that's how knowledge comes to an end. When you are learning, when you are watching what's coming up, So I think let's try to get close to that. It's a bit tricky. We have to communicate with all these people, and I have to use English.
Yeah, I think it's a bit challenging because then, let's say we drop language. At that state, how do you communicate? Okay,
I think before dropping language, I think there's a very interesting way that I drop language, actually. It's when language itself collapses. You see, when, for example, when you sing that, saying that I'm emptying myself is still a product of thought. You sing the limitation of your own language. So language is collapsing. It's losing its value.
Yeah, it's coming to its end.
It's coming to an end. I think we don't realize it because it's too fast. But that realization of...
Also, you are saying at that point you've already dropped language.
It has already happened.
Okay.
You only come back to it, because you're thinking about it now. But that when that realization has happened, the whole thing has already happened.
It has passed.
It has passed. So what we're trying to do is constantly get hold of it. So I think that's the best way of dropping language, by rationally, because first of all, I don't want to be not only just the arrogance, but I also don't want to be a madman.
Yeah.
So I have to be very rational in everything that we're doing. And when you get rational with these things, you've noticed there's a lot of paradox.
Yes.
Which means life itself is a paradox. So when you get there, what is there? There's nothing there. You can't put, there's no movement forward. Even in your own thinking.
There's no input.
There's no input. Any input is useless.
Isn't that a reflection of what this thing is? That it does not need you to,
It's the way I like to look at it, it's almost as if I'm too small to get there. I have to see, I'm seeing my own smallness, if that's a word. So, which means what? The thing has been there. I think I'm not putting it properly. I'm gonna approach it differently. No, let's approach it differently. I lost something. I saw something. It disappeared.
Yeah, because I think
something?
The challenging thing is once you remove, all these things, the filters and everything. What remains, because it's something that's operating outside of language, it means it's also difficult for you to really say what it is. And because it's also something that operates, because I believe it's something that operates also in its fullness, it's difficult for you to add anything because it's already full. And it's almost as if it's something that exists in perfection.
Yeah, it's perfection.
Yes, and because of that, really, what can you say about it? The only thing maybe that you can say is to find your position in it. you know, because I believe that even that that I don't even know what to call it, but I believe that cuts across many things, because then you don't even see color, you don't even see division, you don't see a lot of things.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it's almost as if you die, because without thought, you're really not there.
You are constantly being reborn.
And like I say, it's funny that you should say that, because it's the same concept with Christianity. So being born again, they will tell you that you have to die.
So the old you.
The old you must die. And then the new you now that is living according to, you know, the text of Christianity, then lives. But the old you dies. So putting that aside, it's similar to what you are saying, that once you cross over there, you cannot be in a position to be still saying me. You no longer exist there.
Yeah.
So it's almost also impossible to be able to express yourself in that realm, because you have no identity there. That this rules over there. You know, and because of that, it seems like a destination that once you get there, then everything just, you know, I'm not sure if you understand what I'm saying. And so there will always be a challenge in trying to express what that thing is. But you can see it in glimpses, like you say, in our everyday attempt to express this reality, because I believe we are trying to express that. When someone says, are you telling the truth? What is the truth? What is the source of the truth? You know, when we say thought is knowledge, what is the true knowledge? Because the one that we have now is not perfect. So there should be one that exists somewhere which is perfect. So for example, you also have to ask yourself, where does the first thought come from? What is the source of the first real thought? So there you are asking about the source of knowledge itself. You know, if you talk of evolution, did we acquire it as we, you know, it brings about a lot of questions. But it also leads you to this place where you then realize that if I'm seeing this in filters, it must exist somewhere where there are no filters, right? And so the difficult part then becomes exactly what we are saying, that once you get there, because you can only get there when you die. And by death, we're not really referring to physical death, you know. So metaphorically speaking, you only get there when you die. And death is not an easy thing.
It's not.
You see? So perhaps what you are asking is, if you die, that's where you'll be able to tell me what this thing is about. But as long as we are sitting here and you still see yourself as boss and I still see myself as dummy, we will never get there.
No, I think let's not underestimate ourselves.
Or because then it's thought that's telling me, and
you never get there.
Right. No, I understand.
Yeah, let's not underestimate. You might just be surprised.
Yeah.
So can we say that quote, that is making the world go round? Basically, when that isn't, knowledge is, right? And knowledge is constantly trying to get back to it. So now the movement, already. Movements through my thinking. We can perhaps even say movement, the whole movement of life, even physically.
Yeah, everything.
So movement, the first movement away from that is this.
Yes.
What we are seeing here. Is thinking. So can we say that motion?
Is it motion in expression of reality, or is it motion, like you say, moving away? Is it moving away, or is it an attempt to try and express this? So I think we should establish that. That is thought working against this, or depending on how you use it, because we are saying it's a tool. Depending on how you use it. Because if we say it's a tool, we also have to understand, maybe discuss on how this tool really, what we use it for. So just a typical example, we use thought to solve problems. And we have one here before us. You know, meaning we are applying the right tool for the problem that we have, even though it's limited. But that is what its function is.
Also, to add that, we also use thoughts to create problems.
Yes.
So let's be careful that we are not creating the problem itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it then goes back to that underlining factor where I'm saying you have to be careful on how you are using this tool. You can actually use it to move away from the very thing that you are trying to get to. And that's not to say that the actual tool is bad or anything of that sort, you know. So you then have to place yourself in a position where you're saying, this tool here, the way I see things, the way I reason them, the whole movement, because it's a movement. So if it's a movement, it means, I'm not sure if it's a straight movement or...
Yeah, I think there's no straight.
Yeah, you understand, there's no straight. So if it's a movement, are we able to influence that movement? Because if we are, then we are then able to turn around according to where exactly we want to get to.
Okay. You know, okay, I see what you mean. But if we've already established that thought can never touch that, if we've already established that thought in itself is limited, it can never touch that, what's the use of thought in this manner? Here, in our daily life, very important. There's no way around this. We can improve, and we will improve. We will create. I was looking at YouTube last time. Some guys just discovered how to hypersonic, how to make hypersonic airplanes, something like that. So by 2050, we should be able to travel, let's say, from here to Congo in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
From here to America in less than 20 minutes.
Japan is trying to build a bullet train that will take you straight to the moon. You should look it up.
That's amazing. I wish I have enough money to go there.
Yeah, they're trying to come up with that.
So you see, in this realm here, there's no way around thought. My interpretation of the world is through thought. And I can use this tool to improve or degrade what we have. But this is here. Sorry, I'm saying here, my limitation. But when it comes to that, this can't touch it.
Can it not touch it, or can it not fully express it?
If it can't fully express it, then it's not really touching it. It's only touching bits and bits and bits and bits. That's why it keeps on moving and moving and moving. Maybe. Because if you're not seeing something entirely, are you really seeing it?
No.
You're never seeing it.
So then, doesn't it possibly... can we not say then, as we have seen the limitations of it, doesn't it then call upon, another... I don't know how to put it, but doesn't it then say, once you have reached this limit, then this tool or this has to take over? Because again, the challenge about thinking of it that way is that even that is still a result of this thing here that we are saying is limited.
Yeah.
But are you not maybe ignoring the fact that this thing that is limited can still find its way out of its limitation? Because thought is a problem-solving thing. Hasn't it figured out that you have seen my limitations, right? My nature, my very nature, is to, improve and try and sustain and do that. You have seen that. Can you not then find, the how can I put this? The solution to touching this.
You see how,
because this was just a stepping stone.
Yeah, but you see how interesting thought is, how clever and very cunning it is. I think actually, that's why I feel like there's nothing impossible in this world. If we push our minds to it, if we find ways of creating spaces where people are free and, we solve all these small issues of wars and hunger. I think what we'll achieve in this world is just going to be amazing, really.
Yeah.
That's really attainable. Because this thing is very, very clever, very cunning. Look how it works. So it's here, right? It identifies a problem, right? Then it says, look, I'm limited. I can never get to the solution.
To world peace.
Yeah. Then it says, no, wait. Could that not be my limiting factor that is telling me I can never get to a solution? But you see, and then it does again around a circle, says, no, but still that's my limitation. But you see, what's happening really deep down is movement.
Yeah.
It's sustaining itself by doing all of these.
It's keeping itself alive.
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't that its nature?
That is its nature. That is its only purpose, actually. Living. Life. As we know it. Movement.
Is there an aspect of our being that is able to then observe that? Or you cannot observe it?
No, you've discovered that you are both the problem solver and the solution, the problem maker and the solution.
Yeah.
So whatever you call it, you are both the problem and the solution. So creating a problem and a solution is making movement, making sure movement is there, constant movement.
Yeah.
Because the very second you are the solution, the next problem is created. And if you look at the world, really, is there anything we've ever solved without creating another problem?
Hardly.
Yeah, even in medicine, you find that you're a specialist, a heart specialist, but what you give to the heart ends up affecting the liver and so on.
Because it's side effects,
it's a unitary system, but you're looking at it from a divided point of view. So that is the movement of thought, splitting itself so that there could be movement. The split is one thought, another thought, right? If it is one, right, if it is unitary, there's no movement. It can't look at itself. It has to chop itself so that this bit can look at this other bit to maintain life. So then, can we say, if that is the case, that thought when there's no thought, death is, psychologically at least?
Yes.
Let's not make it sound bad that the death, because we grew up, no one wants to die.
No one wants to die.
But let's agree that no movement of thought is you not really being there. The knowledge of yourself even being there, and who was there and who will be there is not there. So let's call that death.
Yeah.
So thought is avoiding death. I am avoiding death constantly.
Yeah.
Motion is life. No movements, no motion is death.
Yes.
Right? Now, what is seeing this?
That's a tricky question. Because just to add on to it, when you put it the way you put it, to say death then becomes that state when there's no movement and there's no life, it's not there. Yet you can arrive at thinking of this point through thought, right? It almost seems as if really you cannot get to that other side without this death. this death of thought. And once you get to that point where you fully embrace it, I think that's the only way of getting on the other side. And I'll tell you why I'm saying that. Think of someone who's in bed and they are sick, and the doctors have told that person that there's nothing that we can do for you, and they are ready to die. Most of the time, not all the time, most of the time, it's at that moment where things that cannot be explained happen. Others start seeing what they will call visions, you know? But it's only at a point when they've said everything is proven to be of not, like it's nothing. And once they have dropped that,
then they really see.
You see? But for you to get to that state, do you realize if how much experience you have to go through where you say, where boss is concerned, it's finished.
Yeah.
You know, it's not an easy, because now I won't say I can get there because I'm thinking of my account balance, I'm thinking of my kids, and so it's really difficult for me to really get there.
Yeah.
And so without you seeing it, we've actually got there, not fully, but
I think we have.
Yes, you have come to a point where you've at least, you know, in the smallest of things, established that really that place is not easy to get to with me.
I can't get there.
You can't get there. And so death, you know, but death then becomes that place. And that's where then reality is. That's where you really see, you know, things for. That's where you become a madman. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
could you sorry to cut you. You see? Could we put it this way, even on a physical level? When you know that you can't get there, me,
yes,
my thoughts, my rage, then I really see. So it's only when I forget about me, then I can really see you.
Yes.
Right? So
right now you are seeing what you want to see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've removed that division. That's searching. What we're searching for is this. Constantly.
Yeah.
But what happens is I look at this, I capture it, and then it creates the self, the me, and all my imagination, the filters, you know. I can, instead of, you could be laughing, but if I put my own filters, I could see it as, you're mocking me.
Yes.
Or, you whatever, or you're crazy or so on. So it's only when you abandon yourself, when you die, then you really see. Basically, you are seeing death, which is what we call life. We've removed that division.
Yes.
Very
and
interesting.
just to maybe ask a question, because it's also raising this question. Are we then not here? Well, we are here because of thought. Would we be in a different place or state in terms of what we see and what we experience if the knowledge or the thought was different? Would it put us in a different place? Because if we are saying we are a product of this accumulation, would we be different if it was
if the accumulation, the content of accumulation was different?
Yes.
Yeah. If you start accumulating enough about bicycles right now, you probably find a group of bicycle riders. You'll be driving, riding bicycles. So in a way, you create your reality. Although you see it as a rational, logical decision making. Yeah. But really, it's on a very, very subtle level. That's you're materializing the whole of.
That's true. Because if you also think of it. a mind city has the people that live there, their whole life centers around the mind and the activities. And why I'm asking that, then are we not victims of the wrong thought or knowledge?
Yeah, I feel, well, if we're gonna say we have some sort of order that we can establish here in this world. For instance, we've noticed that killing is bad. So if there's constant killing as we see it in our world, then we've been accumulating the wrong thing. Our mind is not properly designed.
So we kill because we have an acquired knowledge of it.
Acquired knowledge of it, which is time, which is survival. So running away from death, you attract death. Which is, I have to survive. So I'm a lion, I have to eat a goat.
Yeah.
You're running away from death because you have to survive. Therefore you kill.
Yeah.
You bring death.
To sustain yourself.
You're killing yourself constantly.
All right.
I mean, if we're neighbors and I'm constantly afraid of dying, I might just predict that this man will kill me tomorrow. I might as well kill him before he kills me. I start plotting.
Yeah.
Before we know, and you're doing the same thing over there too.
But then the solution, well, I call it a solution because in this discussion,
the action
it seems to be the only sensible, route that can then end this. Like, if I didn't have a sense of myself as Dumi, I think a lot of things I would see things differently.
And would do differently.
And I would do things differently. Because without a sense of myself, it means I'm not separating myself from you. So even the very idea that I have a name is division in itself. Because now I know there is Dumi. And if there's Dumi, there should be boss.
Yeah.
You see? So then that knowledge from its inception, from its very beginning, I think we are acquiring the wrong knowledge. So maybe that's where the problem begins. That the accumulation of all this is accumulation of
demi-truth, accumulation of half-truth.
Yes.
Will lead to problems.
You lead to
all
problems.
the time.
Yeah. And so once you see through that filter or see through that vein, then you realize that you and I are not so different. We are one in essence. You're a human being, I'm a human being. And even if you want to look at it at its most basic state, your needs are my needs because we are both human beings. But because of these other filters, I'll think, no, I want a BMW and you want, a Mercedes-Benz. But that is not you. So our divisions are not ours. They are also a product of this. And I'm saying once you see that, it does put you in a place where you then have this feeling that I can actually do things different because this that I'm doing now isn't.
Now, first of all, you feel that responsibility itself, that you've been doing it wrong in a way, quote unquote. And you look around you, you see, know that you have to, I know it sounds a bit arrogant, but you look, wrong is being done. You can't just sit now. You have to act. Intelligence is acting within you. You're acting from that. All the time. So your thoughts, although divided, it's very clear. It knows what, its limitation, and it knows its own conflicting nature. So you're acting from that all the time. Now you meet someone who gives knowledge the ultimate priority. he's very clever, very intelligent, can make this mic in a second. You have no idea how to do it.
Yeah, how to do it, yeah.
They give him glory, they give him, they put him on a pedestal in a society. You can't even approach a guy like that.
It creates arrogance.
Yeah.
It's a sense of identity.
Sense of identity and sustaining and so on. Now, what do you do with a man like that? Because you know, at the end of the day, it's you. It's your responsibility. You can't abandon your brother or your sister.
Mm-hmm.
He can throw you in jail in a second, but still you have no choice. You know, you have to act.
Mm.
So I think maybe what I've noticed for me is you live a very hypocritical life. Yeah. A very painful life.
But only once you have come to that knowledge.
Yeah.
I think once you have...
Once the contact with that has been established, suffering has started, the real suffering.
Yeah, because you then realize that you are not actually to be doing what... You're not supposed to be doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to be, getting hold of it as if it's your own thing. It's not.
It's not.
Because the you is not so different from me.
It's the same.
Once you start fighting me, you are not you. You see.
So you're rejecting a man like that, who's somewhat seen through that. He comes to talk to you, so you see that, right? And then you approach, you start. Because first of all, you have to approach me in a certain way. Mm-hmm. If my interest is soccer, you have to approach through soccer. If my interest is religion, you have to approach in a way, hoping that maybe I'll have a small gap, that depth, that I will die for a second and then, you put something, But I'm rejecting you every day, every time, every second. I could reject you politely, through arguments. Or harshly, insulting you, throwing you in jail, and so on. Mm-hmm. So then you feel the weight of being alone, not on two levels. Not only because it's not easy to relate to how things are done generally, the way of living of people, but also that the whole thing is you.
Yeah.
You are alone.
Yes. Isn't that the life of a madman?
No, this thing, you can go crazy.
Yeah. Well, you can go crazy according to...
Yeah, according to the definition.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, literally, the crazy I'm calling is you lose it. You can decide, I don't care about life anymore. I don't have to shower. Yeah. I can go lay in the street.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I feel it's unnecessary. We don't have to go to that extent.
Yes.
But even in our language, for instance, see the discussion we're having here. Mm-hmm. Even language itself is collapsing all the time.
Yes.
So having a discussion with someone about this, you sound like a madman.
Yeah, and you are likely to come to a conflict.
Yeah, you can easily get mad.
Yes, you can.
You say, you don't understand, and then now the whole pack is against you. Now you really start believing something is wrong, and
perhaps redefining our what we call our identity may help. To be able to to interrogate yourself, to ask yourself those difficult questions on issues to do with identity. Because, like you say, you can be busy with something that you think is of your own, but really there is nothing that is of your own.
There's of your own.
And if that's the case, why do we fight so much?
What are you fighting for?
Yes, what are we fighting for? Because even that which you hold dear to yourself is not really yours.
What do we really own?
Yeah.
We can say, let's say this studio is owned by the Brennan and them, legally and so on, maybe the space and all that.
Yeah.
But do they really own it? Even when you say my child, do you really own that thing, that movement?
And funny that you should also mention that. So when I was speaking about Emily Durkheim, he says even the idea of being a father is a social fact. Because if you have a child and you don't take care of that child, what does society say?
You're not a good father.
You're not a good father. Then you wake up to the reality that this thing that I'm embracing and I'm saying, me, I'm a father. It's actually not, it's not in my hands.
Yeah.
It has to meet the standards of this outside external thing that says, oh, you're doing this, then okay, you're a father. But once you step away from it, you know, you then realize that, okay, this is not my own. And it goes back to this aspect where we are saying once as human beings we realize that most of the things that we embrace and call our own is not ours. And because of that, there's really no need for you and I to fight. You know, even if it's an issue of language and we fail to understand each other because of language, it's not ours.
It's not ours.
You know, we can't be fighting about ours. You borrow this jacket from someone and suddenly we are fighting about it, you know. But it also creates that responsibility that you say, because you realize that it's a big task to then put people in that same, you know, mind, whatever you want to call it, to say, look, because honestly, there will not be a reason why I would fight you if I fully understand that.
Truly, if that is a way of thinking, of living, I don't see problems that can't be solved. The problem will arise, the very rising of the problem is the solving of it.
Because if you think about it, we put security fences around homes where we stay, you know, because there's someone who says, this is mine, and then the other person says, I want that. You know, that division that's arising out of this identity thing, you know. And like you say, when you then look at it to say, is it really, really yours? You know, when you look at that person, are you not seeing yourself, the needs of that person? Are you not coming to a point where you actually realize that what you are fighting for, this very person is also fighting for? But what's creating the blinkers and the clearness and everything is this knowledge that you hold on to. If you just give yourself, you know, that time to self-reflect and see it for what it is, you also come to realize that it's actually an illusion, like you say. It's not what you think it is. It's not as, you know, perfect as you think it is. And so once you begin to then see those limitations, it sort of slows you down. You know, and if you slow down enough, you'll die. And then you're like...
Now you're born.
Now you're born, you see. And I think that born aspect of, you know, that after, because it's an unknown realm, it's something that a few people, you know, really, let me call it a crossover. But I'm sure you have seen people that look happy in their madman, you know, state, where like, why are you not wearing shoes? And then they explain, why am I supposed to be wearing shoes, you know? So there's always that possibility that you might be labeled a madman for just seeing things in this way.
Differently.
And in actual fact, when that way is the one that can, you know, work for us as human beings.
So I think also one of the reasons I wanted you back is, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you see also one thing with this, when you take this seriously, when you go that far. Playing the game here becomes a bit tricky, right? Because you know you're being hypocritical. There's some things, but it's also necessary. I love these social constructs to some extent because it keeps you grounded. You know, it's beautiful too to some extent. It keeps you grounded. If you don't get involved in this day-to-day life, you can easily be mad as in physically, psychologically mad. Yeah. So responsibilities are important. Family, all these issues. It's kind of like a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
That now you have to try to fix these things.
Yeah.
It keeps you also alive. So one of the reasons I wanted to bring you here is, as we were talking, I see that you were really emphasizing on, although conflict is there, we can find a way to navigate life
that
through
common
that.
ground. Yeah.
You put a lot of energy into that, and I think it has some value in it. Hopefully, you don't also
get to a point where I then say, you know what, no one is buying into this. So
I'm saying, since you have that mind, my brother, and you see, it's one thing a father who is taking care of his son, sending him to school, feeding him because society mustn't judge him.
Mm-hmm.
It's another thing when he sees that this little man is me.
Mm-hmm.
Then he's acting from compassion all the time. And that compassion can't be put only on the child, because that compassion is with him every day.
Powerful,
You know, he's in everything. It's not my child, it's a child. It's not my neighbor, it's a neighbor. You know, it's me all the time. It's me, everything is me.
Yeah.
So it's like you're acting from a very, very weird stance, but which is beautiful and very orderly. Now, yet you are faced with quote unquote evil. So how will you go on about this with this kind of not even understanding, this kind of intelligence acting all the time? How will you go on about this without suffering tremendously?
Because it almost puts you in a position where you are a sheep amongst wolves.
They can easily take advantage.
Yeah, but you understand the wolves and you understand why they are acting the way you are acting, and you are trying by all means, to act in such a way that they don't take advantage of you being in this state that you are in. So I think that probably calls for caution, a lot of caution. Because you can't be, what's the term? You can't place yourself in a situation where you take things for granted and think that people will see things, the way you see them, And it almost feels like a huge task, to get even 2 or 3 people or 4 people to see things the way you see them, Because it's not always that when someone sees something, it affects them the same way it will affect you, Because another person can see that, okay, this thing works this way, and they use it to do more of what they are doing. Because now that's where manipulation comes in, Because now you understand that, so this is how boss acts, and is, the factors behind his actions are this and that. And then from that, you can then say, okay, this is how I'll then do things better for, for the good. And then someone can say, okay, this is how I'll then use this to my advantage. So it's I think you can only do as much as you can. But where you are able to make it, something that counts.
So could it be that as you're seeing it now, could it be that the best you can do, besides, because of course you can do so much here in the game, could it be that the only thing remaining for you is to find another man, maybe?
Yes, because that's how it starts. You really want to know, you can try and project how it can go.
No, you can't even project because you're not taught.
Yeah.
You can't. You're not playing that game anymore.
But because it's a condition that, out of all things, puts humanity in a better place. There's hope there. It gives you hope to say, okay, if I can make you see things this way, if I can make you realize, you know, the gurus will call it enlightenment or whatever, because that's what it is. Like you become open to something that was closed. Because there are some people that really don't see it the way you are seeing it or the way I'm seeing it. You know, they're just going with their everyday life, and you know, it's like you know,
no, they're flourishing in their misery,
and they're happy.
Yeah,
you know, but because you're not looking it in the, and some people don't even want to entertain it, because why should I look at it like this when I can look at it like this?
You know, I think that's postponing suffering. You see, I feel
Are you saying it will still come back?
You see, you see now that's when you really have to face death. Actually,
then everything
you will never let go. Because, you know, you've run away your whole life. You think at the last second you're just going to let it go like this. So the cycle.
So at that point, then that means at that point of death, and again, we're not saying at that point, it means we all go through the same, almost the same, call it reflection or whatever it is, but there's always that. And why I say that, because it's the same for everyone. You know that. So probably the effects also are the same.
Yeah.
When you go through it at death, or does it really affect you that much, or that depends now and there?
No, I think it does. Now this, I have no. We can look at it rationally, but I think I can approach it also from personal experiences. Always terrible. I hate. There's some other things perhaps we should also talk in private. You know. Because I'm still playing also the hypocritical game. And you know, at the end of the day, you kind of have to watch what you put out there. But rationally, if thought is maintaining itself, yet it is always moving in circle. Right? It is limited. Or as I remember, even I was talking to Brennan at some point, he never really liked the idea of a circle. He likes to see it as a spiral, rather. But I think to me it's still the same thing. Whether it's a circle or not, there's no end. You know, it's continuous movement.
It's always almost hitting the similar holes or similar obstacles.
So it's a loop, kind of. So if you don't do it now, which is the only time you can do, because we've established that this is death. Actually, don't wait to die. You can die right now. Psychologically. Actually, even physically, quote unquote. That's perhaps something we should discuss separately. But you don't do this, you are caught in something. Just like thought is caught in its own limited pattern.
And it will come at that point.
Until you accept, you give up. You know, that's why all these religions say, you know, confess, let go, leave your belongings, leave your...
Because there's a point when you have to take account and stock and see it for what it is. Like you said, it's only at that point that you really see things
for what they are.
Which
means you give up on everything. You give up not only on the good, but also on the bad. You give up on your own personal judgments. Don't judge yourself. Let it go. You did wrong. Okay, fine. Let it go. All that is your identity.
So you're saying instead of dealing with it
now,
rather deal with it now.
So you live a constant new life, you know. You are being born.
Like
don't wait to reincarnate. Incarnate all the time. See the whole... You can live a unitary life, you know, constantly. You don't have to go through the cycle of boss and then do me and then this and then this, thinking that you've been living different things.
Yeah. Almost makes me think of, people that believe in reincarnation.
So I think that's where it plays a role.
You could find that last stroke that will make you not, they say you come back in another life because there's something that you must do in a certain way. And so maybe for each man, there comes that time when he really sees.
There must be.
Yeah.
Then now that's when I said, I think to me that's what I call the evolution of man now. Something else completely is there. It's not man. Here, it's man has reached his limit.
Yeah.
There's no moving out of this. It's a let's just call it a dimension. Yeah, it's a dimension.
Yeah.
You're stuck in this dimension. Kind of like, okay, let's take. It's good. I was watching some video about dimension. Sometimes, also when you do these things, you end up liking, you understand the importance of science as much as the importance of religion. Yeah. So everything becomes very interesting. So the guy was explaining different dimensions. So he would say, for example, an ant that only knows, forward, backward, left, right? Yeah. So that here's the dimension. It's like a 2D. And then when you introduce the height, like we know, now it's like 3D.
It's a different dimension.
It's a totally different. To the ant, there's not, that's all it is, this 2D here.
Yeah.
Now, for men, there's this 3D here. But then we're stuck in time and space. Yes. The space-time here. Then there's a completely different dimension. And that is not of men. Men can't be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel you're stuck in, what's the point? Of repeating the same thing differently over and over. The idea of reincarnation, not even an idea. I can see the validity in it, even rationally. But even if you do some research, you find that really there's some kids, they're born and they can remember, they can tell you where they were killed, and funny things. So all that is in the realm of thought. You pick up on whatever that's been there. It's thought, basically, time. So what's the point of reincarnating, into a rich or a poor? What are you living that is so different? You think a rich man is so different from a poor man deep down?
Or you really think 20 years ago
it's going to be different?
It's going to be different from, or was different from now. It's just on the surface, on the sub-level.
When we used to ride on horses, it was wow. Now we ride on supercars, it's wow. It's the same feeling.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
So essentially, pleasure is pleasure. It's not doom is pleasure, it's pleasure.
Yeah.
Pain
the essence
pain.
of it is the same. Yeah, just the, what activates it or will be different, but the essence of it is the same.
So I feel it's a very wrong way of living if you don't take this thing seriously. You can't wait. You can't gather the courage at the end, all at once. Now somehow you feel like you're gonna, thoughts will go on.
Yeah,
it's been going on basically. That's our history.
Yeah, for ages. Yeah,
that's why we're here.
So in a way, you are saying there should be a way out. A way out of it.
There is a way out.
And once you're out, you go back to the source, or what happens then?
Well, once you're out.
Or is that cessation of energy, you're out?
You're out.
Do you want to be out?
See, the out, we can't describe what the out... For example, what I can say, for instance, I can give a description of the out, even though it's a limited.
Yeah.
Time doesn't apply to you.
Yes.
You're creating time. It's a creative life, So... let's say you are out, right? I'm not out. I'm stuck in a circle. You out, you can jump back and forth. Now the game is entirely different when you...
So the dimension would probably be functioning differently from... just like the ant has its own dimension. Yeah. Okay. No,
so the ant is limited to some point. So here you can do some things, but you hurt, but you're not really hurt. What is hurt if you're creating hurt yourself,
And I think that makes sense, because even if you look at it from a scientific perspective, they will say everything is energy, and energy doesn't die. So you might think it's the end here, but that energy is going to go somewhere.
Yeah,
yes, we might not know where, but it will go somewhere. You see, so it's not an end to itself now when you say you are dead or anything, whether it's physical or psychological. You might think, if I die psychologically, then what? But because the whole thing is a movement, there is still a movement that's going.
There's a movement that perhaps we can't perceive.
Yes, that we can't perceive. Yeah.
So there's great value. You see, one thing I've noticed also with this, you know, you talk about it, and I've met a lot of people that talk about this through and through. They know, and generally, it's people that know so much. I don't know how they manage to get so much knowledge. I mean, I loved school, but one thing I hated is to memorize stuff. You know, perhaps that's why I'm not trying to be an academic. But it's theory. They talk about it. Yeah. They repeat. You know, like that guy was saying, stealing words. What we're saying here has been said in so many different ways. Yeah, it's one thing, because the language itself has reached its limits. We can't say it any differently, right? So, living it, seeing it through day-to-day life, through minutes to minutes, is something extremely beautiful. Yes. Yeah, it's liberating, you know. So, generally, I think, for instance, as we're talking about death, the death of knowledge, it's important to... we've seen it, we're looking at it, it was an actual thing, but now we've turned it into some sort of knowledge now. We're talking about it. Yeah. Because it's still, remember, we're running away from that uncomfortable situation of facing that blank thing, you know, that thing that we can't cross somehow. So there's great value in facing that every day. Yeah. From moment to moment. Life imposes action, so you will have to work, you will have to do this, but when it comes to you, you mustn't run away. Yeah. You must stay with it. As uncomfortable, you can never get used to that. I thought with time you get used to it.
But there's also peace to it.
No, there's a great peace. Yeah, it shouts all the notes.
Yeah, I think for me, that's one of the things I value about it the most.
The peace.
The peace. You know, because when you have come to, I'm not saying fully understood something, but when you have come to a certain awareness, and that awareness puts you in a place where you're at peace. I think a lot of people search for that in life. You know, we have...
Probably that's what we all search for.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on in this world that, you know, they encircle people at the, you know, every minute you have something that you have to deal with. You have this. But if you have, you know, even 1% of it, if you have got hold of something that gives you that peace, especially, I think that's something to really be, you know, worth holding on to. And it's simple things. I think even last time in our previous discussion, I had discussed that it also gives you peace to be able to enjoy your own company. You know, because most people struggle with that. They struggle to be alone. You know, if I was to time you there and say, no distractions, nothing, just you sit there. It's either you're gonna fall asleep, you're gonna want to touch this, but to be in that place where, you know, you have come to this understanding and it puts you at peace. That's something that's very important. And most of the problems we face today is because a lot of people are searching for that peace, but they are searching it in different ways. They don't know they are searching for it.
They're searching it, but they're clouding it by searching it, you know, because even TikTok thing, they're searching for that, the peace. Yes. You drink, it's peaceful, you know, those small little things. Yeah. But the peace I guess you're talking about is it's the peace that you can only get to by sort of suffering in a way, like giving up.
Yes, giving up. You have to go through. So you have to go through that process where it's almost like what we were talking about, where you have to preempt everything. Because what works against that is, okay, I'm now at a space where I'm faced with myself. The thoughts that I'll then have is, I need a house, I need a car. I'm not saying don't need these things, but if you are able to see them for what they are, yes, they are needs that we should have. They are all that.
Life demands.
Yes, life demands that you have those things. But if in the midst of all that, there is a space that you are able to get to, and be at peace, that's very
valuable.
important. Yeah, it's valuable.
Yeah.
And then it's not really separating yourself completely, because we are in this life. Like, you don't have to be a hypocrite about it and think, no, I don't care about these things.
No, you don't. That's the mistake a lot of people do.
You actually you do.
Yeah,
but just because you care about something, it's one thing to care about it and not see it for what it is. Yeah. And I think that's where most people have difficulty in relationships. I'll care about you because I think you have my needs or my interest at heart. Then I wake up one day and I realize you are this backstabber, But then if I see you for what you are and I understand that you are a human being, you are capable of making mistakes. There will be times when you want to treat me the way you're supposed to. It's human. You make mistake. If I talk to you and to talk about it and we can solve it, I'm seeing you in totality. I'm not seeing you through these eyes.
Through the eyes of the past.
Yes, that will put me in a place where now I'm suffering. Yeah. So once you do that, it then puts you in this peaceful state. And it's the same state that it works almost in everything. Even if these days we have many religious leaders that do all sorts of things. It's because you have not put them in their proper place. You have not understood them in their totality for what they are. They are human. They are spiritual leaders, yes, but they are human.
Yeah.
If they do anything tomorrow, it mustn't put you in a dark space if you have understood who they are.
Yeah.
They are still human.
Yeah.
So this piece also comes from that if you try and carefully interrogate yourself to say, this is how things are. They are not all rosy, but this is exactly how they are. And that's how life is. You're
living a factual life.
Yes, a factual life.
Always fact.
And you also put yourself in a point where you realize that things do not always go how you plan them.
Yeah.
So it puts you in that, that peaceful place. And then you are then able to go through life at least with a sense of, peace.
Yeah, peace. Could it be that sleep was meant to be that moment, that peaceful moment?
It is possible.
Yeah.
It is possible.
I feel sleep is supposed to be a moment where you quiet down.
Yeah, you reset,
you
regenerate.
Regenerate.
And even scientifically they say our body heals
when
we're asleep. So, but it's also a reflection of what it takes for you to be at peace. It means you must remove yourself. You must place yourself in a place or space or state where you're actually focusing on yourself and shutting away all these other things, and sleep being one of them. So you can have it take different forms. Like I'm saying, it can be you coming to a point where you see things for what they are and for how they are. You see through the illusion, like you say. You see through all that, and you understand that all this is limited. And so are most things in life. You are limited at how you can, be what I expect you to be towards me. And once I see that and I accept that there'll be days when you and I are going to fight, when you and I are going to have a misunderstanding, regardless of what the cause could be. But if I accept that, then there remains this space for me that says, because you have accepted it, you can then have this peace here on the side. Yeah.
Because you see now, as you said, the wrong accumulation, it has gotten so bad that we've gotten to a point where even we can't escape anymore through sleep. You drag yourself to sleep and you drag yourself to wake up. So you drag yourself to sleep by drinking alcohol or what, or scrolling.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to give yourself even that second of being alone until you're tired. The body's like, please give me a break. And then when you wake up, when you wake up, I take my Red Bull to go through life to wake up.
You're dragging yourself. Could it be that, like we are saying, couldn't it be that you're doing that because there's something that you're struggling to accept?
Yeah. I don't... First of all, I think there's some sort of imbalance.
Yeah.
There's nothing that is ultimately wrong until you put it out of balance. So, society has gotten us to a point where there's no balance anymore. We've given value to some things that are not important, which is knowledge, which is accumulation.
Yeah.
Accumulation of both psychological knowledge and even things, right? So you try to accumulate during the day and so on and so on. So you feel ultimately like a need to rest. So you have to tire yourself to get to that point. But then when you wake up, society imposes that you have to be active the very second you wake up. You have to be at there 9, 7, you see? So you take something. And then by the time you realize it, normally I take this for when I'm at work, stuff like that, to kind of wake up. But now you're addicted to Red Bull.
Yeah.
And then you go.
The problem, the thing that was supposed to solve the problem
becomes
starting another one. Yeah.
And you see, that I get, okay? That you can easily, like you're saying, I can start gymming, I can cut down a little bit. It's going to be horrible, but at some point I get over it. But the worst part is now in sleep, if you don't have, if you haven't pushed yourself to the edge, as we're saying, dying, learning how to die every day. In sleep, you don't rest. Dreams. All the time.
Come back.
Yeah, which is the common common factor between all of us. We dream. Some are very, at least a little bit sensitive. They remember the dreams, but most of the time, really, you're not.
Means you're not completely cut off from from that other experience for you to actually be able to rest.
And I feel it's only through sleep that the stepping out can happen. Only that.
So would you say we sleep because we are at rest, or we sleep to rest? Is one able to sleep because they are now at rest? And this could be, or we sleep so that we can
rest.
No,
I think when you sleep, then you can rest. Movement can stop.
Yeah.
Because as long as there's movement, there's that wastage of energy.
Yes.
You are depleting something. And when you're depleting something, there's some sort of friction.
Yeah, that's happening.
It's not really any friction. At some point, hurts, right? But when there's no movement, then you're regenerating. You're creating. Energy. I'm saying creating energy. You just understand what I mean by that.
Yeah.
But you are renewing, right? You are. It's like all energy is now gathered. It's there. It's not one side is not materializing into this and then another side. Then from that, now you can act. Then there's a step out. Then there's that which we call creation, the stepping out, which now is this. The stepping out is the quote source of this. And you see it only through sleep, because that is the, I don't see how you can do it as I'm talking to you right now. But through sleep, I can be talking to, I can create the conversation.
Yes.
And then, you know, the repetition will happen as we go on with our day, which is thought which is always repetitive, which is materialization and all that.
So sleep then becomes the closest to it then?
Sleep becomes a very important thing now. Sleep, there's no, now you understand the importance of sleep. Yeah. It's not just there by chance, by mistake. It's, there's very good, very high order in sleep.
And it also comes with its own challenges. So why I was asking you that question about rest, and so say you're about to fall asleep. If psychologically your mind is not at a point of rest, that's when you have issues of insomnia. You can't fall asleep because that energy
is going.
Understand? But that few minutes before you actually fall asleep is because you found a place of rest.
Of rest, yeah.
And then you then cross to this dimension where you can now fall asleep. And
where you can actually wake up.
Where you can actually wake up.
Yeah.
And in that realm also, it matters what you were occupied with in terms of thought. Because
then that's where all your financial problems, your sexual problems catch you.
Then when you are here, when you are now up and you are seeing things, you now see them for what they are. But these few minutes here before falling asleep also do have that effect.
That's why it's important. I find it very important, for me at least. I try my best. I don't force anything, but I try my best to listen to my conflict before I sleep, at least for a very few minutes.
And find a common ground with it.
Understand that I can't do anything about this thing. And then the giving up.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because most people that struggle with sleeping have not mastered that. The best way to sleep is if you have something that is constantly in your mind that you're thinking about, is to find a common ground. Even if that common ground is not one that's going to last you a lifetime. But for that...
making peace with with your problem.
Then you fall asleep. Then there you are able to fall asleep. Which also goes back to what we are saying, that it seems like we enter... we cross over through what we do with this knowledge. It matters how your next movement or your next phase is going to be like. Even in situations where it's not just physical, you know, it does really matter how you then deal with it. And in issues of sleep, like you say, you have something that's bothering you, you're about to fall asleep, and then you say to yourself, what common ground can I find with this issue? And those that struggle to find a common ground are the ones that then fall into insomnia. They can't sleep. It's 3 a.m. and then they distract themselves with, you know, and somehow you then fall asleep, but when you wake up the following day, you are tired, you know, because you're not really...
And you never fixed your problem, because you can only fix your problems through sleep. Even, I'm sure the biggest inventors, or I like to call them discoverers, not inventors, must have done it through a moment of peace, a moment of sleep. The artist and all that. You can see it through, so you can only the create, because the way I see it, if your whole life is disorder, your whole during the day disorder, which is we're limited to it. Disorder in the sense that I'm limited, I have problems, I can't solve all of them, and it's hurting me, right? Somehow you find a way to kind of stabilize that, you understand your own limits and so on. It gives you sleep, peace. Then that space should give you enough energy to puts order in your next day.
Mm-hmm.
But if you haven't done that, the disorder during the day catches you during sleep, which creates a disorder for the next day.
Continues.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, like you say, sleep then becomes one of those things that can actually bring about sort of order or clarity.
To me, I feel sleep is the most important thing in
Is
life.
it not like that because then you are alone?
Yeah.
So as to put it.
Even dreams try to show you, when you're dreaming, you could be dreaming of a discussion like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's you.
Yeah.
It's all you. Yet
Yeah.
you're putting a man there. But you wake up because you're so deranged, so limited. You start either because knowledge has interfered with it, so now you start projecting, oh no, pastors told me this, or you start making sense of it, you start thinking again. Start realizing that actually you are putting this thing here again.
Yeah.
But all the time it's trying to show you, like, look, if as you're sleeping, you're having discussions with people, you're killing, a dog is biting you and all that.
That is you.
But it's you.
It's you. Yeah.
What makes it, why can't you see that's what's happening? So you can't see it, if you don't see it there clearly, how you're doing it, you can't see it here. Because here it's too hectic. Life is too...
It is. Yeah.
Life is too complex for you to think about these things all the time. It's... after here you have a plan. I'm thinking already, I'm hungry. Maybe we should eat something after. So, the thought is it has taken all the energy. You can't see through it.
It's like it clouds you. Yeah. I think, well, to put it this way, like what you say, what I'm realizing is that none of this can really be something that one can solve, perhaps as a group. It's something that has to first.
It's you.
Yes.
I am the problem. So if the solution is finding maybe 5, 6, 10 people, if I'm not finding those 5 people, it means I'm not. There's something wrong. I'm not doing. There's something that I'm not doing.
Yeah.
But if I'm already finding one person, then I'm finding myself.
Because the way I see it, it doesn't sound like something that's a group thing.
It's very.
Yeah.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for coming, my brother. It's always a pleasure. This to me, although it sounds very serious, it's a pleasure for me. It's very fun because I'm always discovering it, and it makes it even more interesting when you sort of link, that and this. When you start playing with it. So I don't know if I will. There's a brother of mine, I don't know, the Pakiso, I think you know him.
Pakiso, I know him.
Yeah, he's very, very sharp in his thinking as well. He definitely touched there. Then he said, he was starting to see that he's acquiring some sort of pleasure movement from doing this. So he became a bit careful with that because he figures that anything that you cling on too much ends up becoming a problem.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but I think he's also maybe going through something else. At the moment, he doesn't have the time. But I think there's nothing wrong with enjoying this. And noticing that it's pleasurable, how you're getting attached to it, I think that should be good enough. To notice that now you're starting to corrupt the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think in the long run, whatever that we should be doing or create or attempt to do, it always has to come from that death thing, of dying to. Otherwise, we can become really good monsters in this thing. Really, especially when you start now playing with this whole thing of time, then, I don't think there's limits now to this thing. So I just pointed that out because I wanted to say it's a pleasure always doing this. It feels new. I hope it feels the same for you as well.
No, always.
So thank you very much for coming.
Okay.
And everyone else, thank you for being with us. I hope you found this enjoyable and valuable. So thank you very much.